So here we are on a Monday morning, and I'm joined by Pat+Jude, editor, author, well, that to be explained later on, and all-round good fellow, still wearing his aggressively red Man United shirt. How are you this morning,
Can I,
Pat?
can I tell you something? I've got two of these. Everybody thinks it's the same one.
You should say the other little thing up on it. This is the other one.
That's the other one, yeah.
Yeah.
Rosie, my dear wife, was in the shop one day and she saw two of them and she says, bollocks, I'll take two of them. The only thing is everybody thinks I'm wearing the same shirt for 3 or 4 days. I'm not. It's a different
I,
one.
I read an article, I was going to discuss it, but I don't think there's room, on men and women and men who like or don't like strong women. Very interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Just like you tuck that in your
Thanks very
subconscious,
much.
Pat, and we'll push on to the normal stuff. The obvious one is this thing of the Israeli-Palestinian, as you say, eruption.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one, I'll just say this and be honest. When I heard that there was a massive attack by Hamas into Israel, God forgive me, my heart leaped, because I felt that, for so long, the people of Gaza, the Palestinians generally had such a terrible time. And nobody really, if they reported it, they just said, well, it happened, that was it. And now Israel was having punched the Palestinians in the face for 30 years or so. They were getting punched back. I have to say my heart leaped for a moment. On the other hand, then you hear the individual stories of women and people being raped and awful stuff. And you feel, this is awful. So what's your reaction to it, Pat?
I got to admit, I think it's a horrible situation. Do you know the one thing that I remember sitting in a cafe in Donegal town? I think it was about May 18th, about 2018. I remember a news flash came on. It was the day the Americans moved their embassy from Tel Aviv to
Yeah,
Jerusalem.
yeah, I remember that.
And in the midst of all this, the Israelis shot dead 50 plus Palestinians. Now, these weren't armed. There was no guns. And it was shown on Al Jazeera. It was shown on BBC. They shot dead 50 protesters. 50, one after another. They had marksmen encamped along the fence they have there. And because there was, it was called the Day of Rage by the Palestinians. ABC News, American, so it's not Al Jazeera. ABC News in America said that at least 2,400 people were injured that day, most and died that day uh, using gunfire. 50 were dead and over 2,000 were injured. And I remember thinking, it was a turkey shoot for the ADF. No, the Sharpeville massacre, no Bloody Sunday, and Amritsar. Those were famous massacres carried out by subjugating and colonizing regimes, and rightly called out. Remembers that day in about the American embassy. Very few people do. The Palestinians were just gunned down, and I sat back and watched, and I said, "There's something totally immoral about big politics or
Mm.
geopolitics that this is allowed to happen." And the Americans didn't condemn the Israelis. The Brits didn't condemn the Israelis. The EU didn't condemn the Israelis. They said, "Oh, this is horrible, and we need to be," and we call for a de-escalation. But there was no outright condemnation that this is brutality, this is thuggery, this is subjugation and oppression, and it's almost a genocide. You know that.
I find it difficult to disagree with the words you've said, Pat. So how is it that you and I are talking about that kind of thing and providing that context for this latest outbreak of conflict? And yet, when the Labour Party was asked on it, they didn't say stuff about the context. They didn't mention the Palestinians being shot or that kind of thing. They said, we're disgusted, horrified, and we're going to support the Israelis 100%. Joe Biden rushed to say, we will give you arms, further arms, as necessary. Britain was outraged. The Tories, of course, were outraged. And the EU was outraged. So what's going on? Are we being just a little bit anti-Semitic despite ourselves? Or is it that these people are afraid to speak? Why are they
Look, 2.3 million people live in Gaza. It's about the same size at the very most, the size of County Louth, and I don't think it's even the size of County Louth. But anyway, By the way, 139,000 people live in County Louth. 2.2 million people live in it. It's the most densely populated place on earth. It is also the biggest open air prison on earth because the Israelis can turn off their water, they can turn off their electricity, they can even block their food supply, which they're, by the way, they're now currently doing. Does anyone seriously think, that these people, that there isn't rage there? That they're subjugated and humiliated, that there's really just dominate their lives totally, and then Israel has the right to defend itself. But the Palestinians. Now, here's the thing, Jude. No one on their right mind is going to say Hamas are nice guys or all the rest of it. But the sort of the balancing of the here is that what under God did the Israelis and the sort of the global powers think were going to happen if you treat people like pigs and a pigsty, which is what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians.
Well, what do you make of the questions that the interviewers are asking, say, Labour politicians? Do you condemn the actions of Hamas? Do you figure that's good journalism or not?
No, there's a total dishonesty in a lot of the coverage. There's no attempt to sort of say, no, to ask the Israelis and to ask why. Go and put it in context. What's going on here? Um, and about 50% of the people in Gaza are unemployed because of the blockade. The enclave is totally blocked by the Israelis. They can't get work there. They can't get, the poverty levels are unbelievable. The malnutrition levels are off the scale, and so on. It's a fertile breeding ground for for angry young people, male and female. And is that never explored? And this last Jude, since I think about 2008, about 300 Israelis are killed, which, by the way, is awful. It's total. But about 56,000 Palestinians have been killed by the Israelis. It's never mentioned that. Last Thursday, Jude, 4 Palestinians, the eruption occurred on Saturday. But, 4 Palestinians were killed on Thursday. 3 of them were killed by the IDF, and 1 was killed by a settler. Mentioned just on an ordinary day, 4 ordinary Palestinians just killed, murdered by the not a word about it.
How would you have reacted, Pat, if in the wake of Bloody Sunday, a couple of days after Bloody Sunday, a unionist commentator had come on and said, "Well, I would condemn what has happened, but we must set it in a context here. We've had rioting in Derry, we've had soldiers have been killed, there have been explosions. We must remember all that suffering and destruction that went on beforehand." How would you have responded to that?
Jude, somebody throwing a few stones in an army, as a heavily protected army, is one thing. Shooting dead, like the Israelis did on the May 18th, I think it was, or May 15th, 2018, almost well over 50 people. I think it was 54 people, and injuring more than 2,000 others because they were burning flags. Jude, it's totally disproportionate, totally unacceptable. There's no possible justification for it.
Well, why then is it that you have the immediate reaction and total support of Israel by the US? Why is it that you have the Labour Party and presumably the Tories immediately and totally in favour of Israel and expressing their sympathy with them? Why is that?
Because it's all the geopolitics, and I presume, Jude, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the Israeli lobby right across the world is very, very strong. Like, look at Jeremy Corbyn. When he took the side of the Palestinians, by the way, the least anti-Semitic leader in years, the least racist, he stood up for nearly every minority group under the sun. He was portrayed as a racist, an anti-Semite, because he wasn't. What he was pro-Palestinian, because he was standing up for the underdog again. And that's beyond question that the Palestinians are the victims here. Yet the victims are being blamed for their own victimhood.
Well, they've been blamed for retaliating. I keep thinking of Brenda Devlin's thing about being punched in the face and eventually you punch back. I think myself that it's a question of elections. Joe Biden's going for election because, as you say, the Israeli lobby is so strong in the United States. He's absolutely keen to keep them on side. If you take the Labour Party, they're still running scared from that successful elimination of Jeremy Corbyn as being anti-Semitic,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
they're
Yeah.
falling over themselves to let everybody know that they are totally behind Israel and that nobody can make this charge of anti-Semitic sentiment among them. I think that's the reason. I think, Pat, we're singing a solo tune here. There's very few. I can't remember the last time I saw or heard anybody say anything when they were talking about the actions of Hamas, that any of them said anything about the actions of Israel.
Yeah. Did you see? Yeah, what it got? Everybody makes this, it's the old facile argument. Oh, so you support terrorism and you support Hamas? I am not supporting Hamas. I'm not. But what I am saying is the Israelis. You reap what you sow, and what the Israelis have done to the Palestinians. Jude, like yourself, I was sort of saying. On Saturday morning when I saw this, I'm amazed that it took so long because Jude, and here's just to move on a wee bit. Isn't it amazing? The Israelis, they consider themselves one of the most progressive armies in the world with a military. They claim they have these drones that can detect such and such. They have satellites that they spy on them. They claim they have human intelligence in nearly every village in Palestine, paid informers and so on. So how come, with all that sort of eavesdropping and intelligence gathering and paid informers, how come the biggest invasion and what, there's what 600 dead. There's, I think, the what do you call them, the Hamas broke through in 29 different places. They took down the impenetrable fence. Go on, explain all that to me.
Well, you tell me this, but first you explain this to me. How is it that we are the only, you and I, in our humble way, are the only people who are speaking up about the context of all this and what has happened to the people in Palestine? Now, you get isolated
Jude,
articles. You'll not
hold
get
on,
an
no, Jude,
article now. I don't think you'll see an
no, no.
article about
But
the
Jude,
context.
but Jude, here's the thing. I am right across the world. You will come across, not the people in power, Jude. I don't know what's going on there, but you'll see in the universities, and you get a lot on social media. The number of people who think like we do is we're not alone. We're far from it. A lot of the people are sort of saying exactly what me and you are saying. And Jude, a lot of people know it. Even I think there's like Jeremy Corbyn and all the rest. The Labour Party. Anybody that speaks out in behalf of Palestine today will be out of the party tomorrow. And so that's the reality.
Isn't that a shameless thing,
Yeah,
or a
yeah. Sure,
shameful thing?
even Michael Martin last night.
Ah,
The Americans, the Americans have the Irish politicians so scared, even they won't speak out. And we, who have first-hand knowledge of colonialism and oppression and subjugation, should know what the Palestinians are going through.
that's true. That's true. Anyway, all bloodshed is awful. Actually, it's when you hear about these people taken hostage and women paraded naked through the streets.
You see, no one's defending that, and you see this sort of thing. What will be? Oh, so you are on the side. I am not, and I want to make that clear. What the Hamas has done and what they have done. Hamas are not nice people. They're fundamentalists. These are guys who believe in what public beheadings and lashing and all this sort of stuff, and and so on, and Sharia law. So I am not batting for them. What I am having to go is Israel's unbelievable savagery towards the Palestinians.
Just one last point, Pat. The use of the word terrorist, I noticed that was used immediately. Do you think there's a case for calling Hamas terrorists? And if so, what does that make them? I mean, remember Gerry Adams' famous statement at Martin McGuinness's funeral that Martin McGuinness was not a terrorist, he was a freedom fighter. What about this term? I mean, is it a legitimate term to use?
No, I don't have a big issue with that. If Hamas are terrorists, so is the ADF. The ADF go into villages, Palestinian villages tonight, and absolutely terrorize the people there. they lift wee fellas and blindfold them and put their hands and those plastic handcuffs. They put blindfolds of them. They keep them in dark rooms and all that. They terrorize whole families. So they're like, just because you wear a uniform doesn't mean you don't terrorize people. So that term terrorist is very subjective. It's always used by those of the establishment. The other side are always terrorists. They're always the good guys. Bollocks, that's not true.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually when some unionists, certainly DUP people, talk about the IRA, they say, "Oh, cards." They plant a bomb in the depth of night underneath somebody's car and then clear off. As if. I hate to be sort of lighthearted about it, but as if, you prove your manliness by planting a bomb and then standing there waiting for the security forces to come.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Kevin Maher. He's a very interesting guy. Tell me more about him. I know he was a former Labour Party advisor. What is he now, Kevin Maher?
He's sort of a political pundit, and I know he's written a book because I've read it, but I think where he suggests that United Ireland's inevitable and so on. But he seems to be mainly now a political pundit. I think he might be a columnist for some papers. I'm not 100% certain. Just that I know he's now BBC get him on fairly regular. I think after his spell with the Labour Party, I think he's become very much pro Irish. I think his interactions. I'm on like I'm putting words in his mouth in a way. I think he's become more and more sort of what we say. I'll go the way less and less enamored of the unionists as time has moved on. That's the best way of putting it.
Of course, with a name like that, Kevin Maher.
I would say that he's a strong.
Anyway, he said, and you've quoted it here in this email to me, this is Kevin Maher speaking on the DUP. Jeffrey Donaldson talked about having a roadmap. Unfortunately, we have seen for the last 18 months is that roadmap is leading to a cul-de-sac. The DUP position with this boycott is a tactic in search of a strategy. That's pretty good, actually. Pretty good.
That's very good. Here he's basically saying their tactic is to sort of boycott the thing, but they have no strategy to how to get out of it. And it's a very they have no idea where they're going. It's a tactic, but they have no clue how to achieve what they're doing. And it's true. Here they are, 18 months. The red lines are the red lanes and the green lanes have been introduced. There's no rowing back on the Windsor framework. It's quite obvious the British government is now moving ahead. They want their whole aim is a better relationship with the EU and Americans and everywhere else. And the DUP are not going back in. They've apparently it's some of the DUP supporters are very hardline and say we're not going back in. So where does Jeffrey lead them up to the top of the hill and then go back down again? What does he do now?
Yeah, I think actually, Pat, I come back to what I've said before. I think the Tories will give them some sort of little fig leaf or sop of some kind. I notice that Jeffrey's talking in terms of reassurances about the place of unionism within the UK or Northern Ireland within the UK. I think that's what will happen, that Rishi Sunak will come out with some statement and say, we are 100% unionist, we are 100% behind the wishes of the people of the north of Ireland, and we want to keep it that way. I think they'll do that, and then Jeffrey will slink back in, because if he keeps on the way he is, I mean, he's going to self-destroy. He's going to destroy unionism, I think. Although having said that, unionism is largely behind him. They approve of the opinion polls of hardly say that's what we feel too. How would you explain that?
That I don't explain. I can't explain, Jude, because I think it's almost like nihilism that we'll starve ourselves to death just to get our own way type thing. Everybody, Jude. I don't think it's right. Let me get this to the point. I don't think it's really that much to do with the Windsor framework at all or whatever. It's all about identity. And it's all about this, that the Sinn Féin are near the top. They want a comfort blanket, or to use your term, a fig leaf of something, saying that our place in the union is copper fastened. So, as you say, they might give them some sort of legislation or something that no change can take place. But anyway, that's all built into the Good Friday Agreement. But just by the way, you said someone there triggered someone else in my brain. Heaton Harris came out and said, what do you call it? Leo Varadkar's claim about wanting to see a United Ireland in his lifetime was unhelpful. And then Heaton Harris comes out the last day and says, "This is a union, and I'm a unionist." And what do you call him? Sir Keir Starmer joins him and says, "There'll be no United Ireland. It's not even on the horizon, or a border poll, and all the rest of it." You know, are British politicians allowed to say whatever they want on behalf of the union? But the minute an Irish politician opens his mouth, do you note the hypocrisy and the double standards there?
But I think it's similar to the thing about Palestine and the Israelis. They're fearful that somebody will give them the tag, like Labour in particular. And if you think of Jeremy Corbyn, was always very supportive of Ireland and Irish independence, for that matter. They're fearful they'll be linked with those who favour Ireland's eventual reunification or border poll. So as a result, they run a mile from it and excessively say, "Oh, no border poll, not even on the horizon." See, Keir Starmer is so afraid that the lead he has miraculously been handed by the Tories will somehow implode. Something bad will happen and it will fall apart and they'll be lost. As things stand, he's all set, according to the polls, to do even better than Tony Blair did in 1997.
Yeah, I know that. I can't know the BBC political editor. That guy's quite good. He was on the last day. He was on, sorry, last night I was watching news and he said that he had been at the Tory conference last week, and he says there was but he says the air at the Labour Party one is so different. He says they're getting ready for power, and they get there. He says they're, but you're 100% right. Starmer is so paranoid about anybody stepping out of line about anything. Dude, that worries me in a sense. You know, he says his first duty is to get into power, and then he says, "Judge me then," type thing. But Jude, when you have a prime minister in waiting who won't stand for anything, but maybe will fall for anything. You know, you sort of go, wait a minute, what's going on here? He won't allow his people to support the trade union movement. He won't allow them to come out in favour of national health workers. He won't allow them to support trained people who've been badly treated by the profit taking shareholders. All this sort of stuff. And like, what does the Labour Party stand for these days? And by the way, his attitude towards Ireland is almost shades of Thatcher. More British than French, eventually, or and all that sort of stuff. And so I was listening to him the last day. Dude, he won't stand up for anything. So, like, can you tell me what Labour stands for these days?
No, I can't. But I do know that they are getting good polling. I do know that they're 13 or 14 points ahead of the Tories. So, even he doesn't understand how it came about. Starmer's not going to let go of that if he can possibly help it. Here's a question for you, Pat. Do you think the SNP is finished in Scotland?
I think they're seriously damaged. I mean, seriously damaged. Jude, here's the thing: like, the Labour won the seat there the last time, and Labour really needs to win Scottish seats to get into power as well.
That's what I was going to say.
And I think this time, there's been 3 arrests of senior people. No, I don't think any of them charged, but 3 arrests. And there does seem to be, if the charges are right, serious amount of money missing or misappropriate or whatever the word is. I don't know what exactly it is. And there's been no one forthcoming to explain what has happened there. And the Scottish or the SNP well has been well and truly poisoned, Jude. I think they're on a loser and they're on their way down because
you don't think Pat, that this might be a setup? I mean, I can hardly believe it that the likes of Nicola Sturgeon and all the people in the Scottish National Party who are so in favour of not an independent Scotland would risk it even for whatever money whoever was fiddling. I just, it's very fishy.
Hold on, I couldn't rule that out. I'm going on the overall. I think that the SNP are finished. I'm not convinced for a second that this isn't all a conspiracy deliberately, because, Jude, where are the charges?
Mm.
For John Stocker,
Yeah.
that he had dodgy dealings with some car dealer. Jude, not there was not a line of truth in it when it was all over. But
Mm.
he was suspended on the basis that there was that was something that this guy had paid for his holidays. Jude, when it was all over, it was total fake. It was because the man, Stalker, had decided that he was going to get to the truth, and they couldn't let him get to the truth. Politics in Britain is very, very dirty, particularly when it comes to the establishment.
But the people in Scotland seem to be very stupid then. Why would they, not suspect? If I was a Scot, the first thing I would do, I mean, I'm not a Scot, and I do suspect that there might have been a possibility of a setup of a stitch up of some kind. Why are the Scots? I mean, why isn't it reflected in their support of the SNP that they think that this is somebody doing nasty stuff, intelligence people from Britain? I mean, because the British really, really don't want Scotland to go, because if Scotland goes, the UK goes. How come the Scots are canny people? They're not stupid. They're canny,
but hold on. You're working on it, I guess. Like, look at Britain, and what a nation that buys 4 million copies of the Sun, or did, and the celebrity Big Brother, and whatever else. I can't think of all these other. They're fed this diet, and very few people do. They get up in the morning, go to work, and they don't get involved in politics. Like, remember, there was somebody asked to name 2 British female prime ministers, and girl on a contest, and she couldn't. And I saw a couple of years, well, not a couple of years, but a year back, they produced about 4 or 5 photographs one night, and asked who these people were. And,
Yeah.
most of them were senior politicians. Not one person could name them. And you sort of go, this is the level we're at. So a lot of people, I think, simply don't pay any attention. So it's easy to fool them.
I think you're right. Well, I don't know about the last part. It's easy to fool them, but I think you're right. I wonder what percentage of people are interested in politics to the level we are. Like, we're not active politically, but we're very interested in it. And I know my wife's very interested in it. But I wonder what proportion of the population in Ireland would be as interested, as vocal on things as we are.
Very few, Jude. I've come to that conclusion. I really have. I think quite a few people. I think, there goes my phone. A lot of people are simply, Jude, they let it pass over their head.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to answer your phone, Pat?
No, it's all right. I'll get it later.
Okay. Let's just spend another 5 minutes then, because we're running short of time. You brought up this Netflix series on David Beckham. Beckham. I said Beckham because that's where my 2 children live, or 2 of my sons.
Yeah.
It's getting rave reviews, as you say, and you say it's women in particular seem interested in it. Have you watched any of it?
I watched a wee bit. My wife was watching it. And my 2 daughters-in-law were down yesterday, and they were discussing it, and all 3 of them, and all the women were going about, he's such a lovely fella, and his father was very hard on him, and he loved Alex Ferguson, and Alex Ferguson loved him, and all this sort of stuff. And she is not as bad. The rest of Posh Spice is not as bad as she was painted, and all this sort of stuff. I watched a wee bit of it, and
what do you think?
I actually, the wee bit I saw was actually quite good. But there's no point in me saying it was 10 minutes, and I think it's 3 hour and a half long things, isn't it?
There is. I watched about half. I'd say I watched about 45 minutes up to an hour, maybe, of the first one. I was quite attracted to it because I am very interested in Beckham. I think, I mean, even just to see the goals that he scored from free kicks was something else.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that. Yeah. And that movie, Bend It Like Beckham.
Bend It Like Beckham.
I mean, he could cross the ball. The only one I can think of is Alexander Trent, whatever, Arnold.
Alexander.
But boy, he was one. He could kick a ball. But I'll tell you the truth, I found it boring. I find it boring. I find it, shots of him, and he would say something that wasn't really all that interesting. And then you have his father, and he was a lively enough man. I found his mother an interesting woman, a very ordinary woman, down to earth. But Becks saying stuff, him saying stuff, and then Posh Spice saying stuff about how much they liked each other and so on,
Yeah.
and her sitting on a sofa in a sort of semi-sexy pose. I don't know. I just thought it was overtalked. Let me finally then move to a last related thing. It's by another ex-footballer, and that's Kevin Keegan. He says, as you pointed out to me, I don't like to listen to ladies talking about the England men's team at a match because I don't think it's the same experience. I have a problem with that. Do you have a problem
Yeah.
with that, Pat?
Dude, I gotta admit, I'm with Kevin Keegan in this one, and I know this is going to make me out to be a dinosaur and all the rest of it. But anyway, hear me son. By the way, hear me son was telling me yesterday. He said he was on some forum, or he was watching some debate on
Yeah.
either Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and he says there was a big discussion on Keegan's thing, and he says about 98% of the people said they totally agreed with Keegan. No, he says they were all men. you know, and
That's the problem. That's the problem. I feel
uh,
exactly like you feel, I suspect. I feel it's awkward the way women are placed as the anchor. For example, when there's a discussion of a game in the Premier League, there'll be a woman who is the anchor. Yeah. Joe Brawley, of course, has very strong feelings about Joanne. What's her name? The GAA.
Cantwell, I think it is.
Joanne Cantwell. But she is the anchor person for discussion now. Now, I'm torn there because on the one hand, why shouldn't women comment on it?
Yeah.
Then the other hand, the fact of the matter is it's most men that watch football, not women. Yeah. There are women, more increasing numbers, and women's football is getting more and more popular. But I just feel somehow these people have been crowbarred into place, and it looks a bit daft, actually.
Yeah, Jude, it's like have you ever watched an ad now? It's all politically correct. There's always a black person and a white person. I've noticed it now. Every ad, just check it now. See the night you're watching.
Yeah.
There's always the demographics are now shoehorned, and if it's a black man, it's a white woman, and if it's a reverse, and they've always got either a multicolored sort of family unit or some kind of. But by the way, which is all very good, and I'm not knocking that. But your term here, I think women now are being placed in because this is the demographic and so on. Dude, I used to love Football Focus on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I said I'll stop watching it because now I think it's now they're bringing in women's soccer. I think they put in a politically correct person to sort of present the show. And it used to be just about football. Now it seems to be about a whole lot of other issues that the BBC want to appear to be, And by the way, I am a woke person, so I'm not having a go at anybody woke here. But it just seems to be doing the right thing type thing, and I'm going, that's not. By the way, Jude, one other point, very simple. See, I think men's football and women's football are almost different games. And if you watch now, I was watching a bit of women's football last night. It's improved immensely, and the women are very, very good. But I agree with Keegan. Like, see a World Cup final or a European Cup final in a men's game. It's a different game, and you know the sliding and tackles, elbows going back. It's women. I'm going on too long here, but you get the point I'm making.
I do. I take your point, and I think it's a broader point and a more important point. And we'll finish with this. The ads and the programs like Football Focus or whatever, they shoehorn in, as you say, people who will be woke or politically correct. But there's one of the things I notice is you see an ad on RTE, I think it's an RTE, for a building society, like, get a mortgage. And what do you see? Two guys kissing each other.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking guys going to kiss each other, that's fine. But it just seems odd. And I feel uncomfortable about it when I see it for an ad for getting a loan.
But this is all now part of, I presume all advertising agencies have done their research and their, all their sort of, this box ticks, there's the black vote, there's the white vote, there's the gay vote, there's the whatever. And it's all now, and it's all sort of, nothing seems to be done ad hoc anymore. It's all done to fit a profile.
You don't think we're two old dinosaurs who,
Of course we are.
have all
Hey,
sorts of
Jude,
prejudices, and we
Jude,
won't?
here, Jude, I have this idea. See women's soccer. Please, I'll even go to a match and all, but hey, keep no. I'll watch Football Focus. Why not have women's Football Focus? You know, keep them. And by the way, I don't care what it is, but stop trying to do all things to all people, and it's two different things. Jude, here's the point: if Mike Tyson and Katie Taylor got into one ring together, what do you call it? Is anyone seriously suggesting that that would be a fair contest, or it's the same sport?
Oh, boy, the mind boggles at the thought. Katie
Yeah.
Taylor versus Mike Tyson. Okay, Pat,
Uh,
with that happy thought, enjoy your week.
all the
Enjoy your
best,
week.
Jude.
Okay.